Right. Heat training used to feel like something for other people. Elite athletes going to altitude camps, people preparing for Kona, somebody doing a Gran Fondo in Spain that just won't shut up about it. But not you, not someone training for a British winter, not someone fitting sessions around work and kids or racing cat-free road races. But here's the thing, the researchers has moved on and it turns out heat might do things that matter even when you're racing in 12 degrees and sideways drizzle. This isn't a hype video. I just want to talk about where heat training actually fits and where it doesn't. So what's actually happening when you train in the heat? The classic story is simple. Expose yourself to heat repeatedly, your body adapts, you perform better in hot conditions. You have a lower heart rate, you sweat much earlier, and much better stability. True, but that's not the whole picture anymore. Three things seem to happen when you train in heat, and they don't all have the same strength of evidence behind them. First, plasma volume. This is the most solid finding. Repeated heat exposure teaches your body to hold more fluid. Plasma volume goes up, your heart pumps more blood per beat. Consistent across lots of studies. Second, hemoglobin mass, your oxygen carrying capacity. There's now evidence that multi-week heat blocks can increase it. The same thing people chase with altitude, but the effects are smaller and not everyone responds. Some people get it, some don't. Third, heart structure changes. One recent study showed improvements in heart size after a passive heat protocol. Interesting, but it's one study. There's been no follow-up data, so we'll call that a question mark. See the hierarchy? Plasma volume is solid, hemoglobin mass is promising, but variable. Heart remodeling is maybe. That matters because online, everything gets flattened to heat training works or heat training's overhyped. The truth is messier. It hugely is. Now, a question worth asking, is heat actually doing something special or is it just another way to add easy riding? Think about it. Most heat protocols add 40 to 60 minutes of low intensity work, plasma volume expansion, better cardiac output, all things that more easy riding would also do. The honest answer depends on the studies. Some control for this well. The elite cyclist work had control groups doing the same sessions in cool conditions. That isolated heat as a variable. Good design, but not all studies are like that. Heat isn't magic, but in the studies where it's controlled properly, it does seem to add something on top of the work. Heat might be an efficiency thing, more adaptation from the same time, not a shortcut. So when does this actually make sense to use? I see it as three different windows. Build up to a key event, 4 to 6 weeks out, you're already doing the easy riding. Layer in some heat without disrupting what matters. Start of the season or training camp? Maybe. If you're going somewhere warm, 2 to 3 weeks isn't probably enough to get something started. And this one's underrated, the switch to indoor training. When the weather turns, the roads gets icy, you're going to be on the turbo anyway. That first month inside, use it deliberately. Make the transition count rather than just something that happens whilst you stare at Zwift and question your life choices. And here's the thing, indoor training already makes you hotter than riding outside. You're already partially heat exposed, whether you want to be or not. The question is whether you're using it intentionally or just suffering for no reason. I did this myself last year as a little experiment before the final races of the road season, leading into the start of Indoor Track League. My numbers had never been so good. I've also given it to a few riders for the transition into winter and as a last fitness push before training camps. Same pattern, used deliberately and with good timing, it seems to add something. That's not a study, obviously. That's n equals 1 plus a handful of coach riders, but it's why I keep coming back to this. Right, so how do you actually do this? The goal is heat stress, not leg stress. You want to get hot, you want to sweat, you don't need to be smashing intervals. Low intensity, zone 2, maybe even upper zone 1. Keep the power easy so the heat is the stimulus, not the riding. Start without a fan, just turn it off, see how you feel. Then start adding layers, a base layer, a winter jacket indoors, enough to trap heat. You'll know when you've got it right because you'll be very sweaty. You could also get like one of those boxing sweatsuits you see them use in the gym. The target is that consistent sweating, session after session, not one heroic effort where you nearly pass out and have to explain to your partner or your housemates whilst you're lying there motionless on the garage floor. Here's a practical marker. Weigh yourself before and after. Track what you drink during. The difference is roughly your sweat loss. Your bathroom scales are now performance equipment. All right. One caveat though with that, body mass change isn't pure sweat. You lose water through breathing as well. At low intensity and short duration, it's close enough. Longer or harder sessions, it does get noisier. Another caveat, there's a question around whether replacing all the fluid during sessions might blunt the adaptation signal. There's not really clear answers on that, but I mention it because it's an open question, not because I'm telling you not to drink. Don't not drink. Safety first, always. But if you're finishing the session bone dry, you probably weren't hot enough. If you're soaked and seeing spots, you've probably overdone it. There's a middle ground. If you want to go further with your monitoring, there's the core body temp sensor. I use one, I like it. It clips into your heart rate strap, it estimates core temperature in real time. But we should separate three things: what core claims, what independent studies show, and how to use it well. So firstly, what core claims? It estimates body temperature using skin temperature and heart rate, and it gives you heat zones to help dose the load. The concept is sound. What the studies show though, core is reliable. The same session twice will give you similar readings, and that's useful, but reliable isn't the same as accurate. When compared against proper measures like rectal temperature or swallowable pills, which are as unpleasant as they sound, the agreement varies. Sometimes it tracks well, sometimes it doesn't. High heat, variable airflow, it can drift. Individual differences matter too. What does this mean? Core isn't a direct temperature reading, it's an estimate. Treat it as such. So how to use it well, track trends within yourself over weeks. See if your response to the same session changes. That's valuable. Don't chase a specific number like it's gospel. The heat zones are useful guides, not hard boundaries. Combine it with other markers, sweat rate, heart rate drift, how you feel. It's about 200 odd pounds in the UK. You don't need it, but if you like data, it is pretty useful. And I wouldn't be without mine, but I do know its limits. All right, one session won't do anything. All right. 3 per week at a minimum. More is possible, but it does add fatigue. Most studies run 3 to 5 weeks. Shorter gets you heat tolerance, longer seems to drive the blood changes more reliably. But here's the key thing, the best heat protocol is the one that doesn't wreck the rest of your training. If adding heat means your hard sessions suffer, you've gained nothing and perhaps lost everything. Protect your intensity days. If you have threshold intervals on Thursday, don't cook yourself on Wednesday. Passive heat works too. Having a sauna after training, hot bath, you're adding heat stress without adding riding time. Now, not everyone has a sauna, but a hot bath, most people can manage that. And also look around at your local gyms and health clubs. Saunas are really popular right now, and you'll probably find one there. If you can add it into your commute on the way home a few nights a week, you're halfway there already. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough is how heat makes you feel after a block. Not during, but during it's terrible. But after, some riders feel more stable and long efforts, more composed, less heart rate drift, less strain late in the ride. And here's why that might happen. The plasma volume expansion supports better blood flow to the skin without robbing the muscles. Heart rate stays steadier, less drift over time. The heat might also affect your nervous system, how it balances effort. And that's less proven, but it's what athletes report. And I keep coming back to durability. Your peak doesn't matter if you can't hold it. And the hemoglobin mass piece is what makes heat relevant even in cool conditions. 5 weeks of heat sessions increase hemoglobin mass in elite cyclists. Hot water immersion in runners showed similar changes. You're not just getting better at being hot, you might be increasing your oxygen carrying capacity. The same using altitude works, but without the altitude, without the expense, without going to Sierra Nevada and pretending you're a pro. Effect sizes are small, marginal gains, but marginal gains are still gains and a lot more accessible than a month up a mountain. Two things that can make or break whether heat works for you: iron and energy. Now, these aren't footnotes, they're gatekeepers. The hemoglobin response requires making new red blood cells. That needs iron. If your iron is low, the signal is there, but your body can't respond. The same reason people don't adapt to altitude. They blame the protocol when actually their ferritin was completely in their boots. Heat also ramps up inflammation, which affects iron availability. So that's another reason to check it first, especially if you're female, vegetarian, vegan, and you've got a history of low iron. Energy is the other one. If you're underfueled, adaptation suffers across the board, and heat can suppress appetite. Layering heat onto low energy intake is asking for trouble. So eat enough, check your iron, otherwise you might do the work without getting the return. So what about keeping the gains? Adaptations decay, like most training. Plasma volume goes first, days to weeks without heat, and it drops back. Hemoglobin mass hangs around longer, but it still fades. One block doesn't bank gains forever. You probably need maintenance sessions. How many? We don't know exactly, but don't treat heat like a one-time upgrade. Use it or lose it. If you do a solid heat block, then just for the weeks after, just add 1 or 2 heat sessions on top as perhaps part of your endurance riding. Now, who shouldn't do this? Now, if you're already struggling with recovery, sleep, or hydration, adding heat makes it worse. You're already stressed. High training load phase where quality is everything, save heat for another block. If you're ill or run down, wait. Heat amplifies stress. If you're into short anaerobic efforts, there's probably not much benefit. The oxygen delivery stuff matters more for longer events. And finally, if you've got underlying health conditions, talk to someone more qualified first. I'm a cycling coach, I'm not a doctor. Now, the caveats, I've been dropping them throughout, but let me gather them all up. Most studies are small, 8 to 20 people. Individual responses vary a lot. The sweat rate as a driver idea is still a theory. It's a useful guide, but it's not a proven cause. Most studies used trained men. Women often have different iron needs, different sweat responses. Menstrual cycle effects on fluid regulation. If you're female, you're likely working from data that wasn't collected on you, and that's worth knowing. And also, lab outcomes don't always match performance. VO2 max tests aren't road races. There's also publication bias. Heat is trendy right now. Positive results get shared. Null results disappear. And also, companies selling heat products make education content useful, but it's worth checking against the independent research. So where does this land? Heat can drive useful adaptations, plasma volume, hemoglobin mass, stability. Sometimes these translate into better performance, even in normal conditions. Effects are modest, responses vary, and not everything is absolutely nailed down. And here's the hierarchy. Training consistency comes first, fuel and recovery comes next, then equipment, pacing, aerodynamics, and heat sits after all of that. It's useful, but it's not foundational. If your training is a mess and you're not eating enough and your sleep is terrible, a heat block isn't going to come along and save you. The value is in timing and integration. Pre-event, start the season, transition into indoor, use deliberately without wrecking your key sessions. Anyone can do it. Turn off your fan, add a few extra layers, track your weight, be consistent. It's not a magic bullet, it's just another lever, a good one, but still just a lever. Saddleupcycling.co.uk if you want to get in touch. Saddle up and get sweaty. Cheers.